Thank you for staying up late with us tonight. I'm Sarah Horbacewicz. Former President Donald Trump attended an NCAA championship wrestling event last night, just hours after calling for protests and claiming his arrest in a New York-based hush money case is imminent. As Skylar Henry reports from Washington, the prospect of an indictment is sparking wide-ranging reactions across the political spectrum.
Former Vice President Mike Pence says an indictment of Donald Trump is not what the American people want to see.
I'm taken aback at the idea of indicting a former president of the United States. It just feels like a politically charged prosecution here.
Pence cited Americans' right to peaceful assembly after the former president called on his supporters to protest in a social media post announcing he expects to be arrested on Tuesday. In an apparent response, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg emailed his staff, saying, quote, "We do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York."
We have strong institutions and should have confidence in the due process of law. And I think that's what you're seeing play out here. Nobody's above the law.
A New York grand jury is investigating hush money payments to women who allegedly had sexual encounters with the former president. Accusations Trump has denied. Some say an arrest could help boost Trump's prospects for the 2024 presidential race.
I think it's building a lot of sympathy for the former president.
I think it'll probably charge and probably amplify his base, given that he's running.
Go Trump! Go Trump!
Supporters came to rally in Trump's defense in Oklahoma, where he appeared at the NCAA wrestling championships and near his Florida estate.
I mean, you could keep going after him and the outcomes are all going to be the same, and it's only going to incite more people to come out and support.
Trump's claim aside, the timing of any possible indictment remains unclear. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
The Manhattan DA's office has been coordinating security measures with the NYPD and other local agencies.
Well, it's been an overall chilly weekend for us, and it's going to be another freezing night for all of us across here in the Natural State. Already seeing temperatures dip into the 20s as of this evening. Here's a look at those temperatures across the state. We're in the upper 30s right now here in the metro, already down to below freezing in Russellville, in Clinton, in Harrison, and in Fayetteville as well. Tonight, we're expecting most of the state to be below freezing in the 20s for tonight. So that's going to warrant for another freeze warning until at least tomorrow morning around 9 o'clock. Then we'll start to see temperatures above freezing for the rest of the day. It won't be nearly as cold tomorrow as it was for today, where we were mainly stuck in the 40s for highs throughout the day. Our mornings ahead, by your Tuesday morning, will be above freezing. We're going to continue this warming trend, even seeing our mornings in the 60s by the end of the upcoming week, along with some warmer afternoons as well. So I'll have a full look at what to expect for your upcoming week in your forecast coming up.
Now a heads up for travelers. Road closures continue here in central Arkansas next week. Construction crews are set to begin work on Highway 67 in Jacksonville tomorrow. The project will expand the highway to 6 lanes. It's something that's been in the work for years. This is the 31st and final project of the Connecting Arkansas program. You'll also see some closures in Little Rock as crews work to begin to demolish and reconstruct parts of the 13th Street Bridge. Construction there begins tomorrow and will last about 180 days. In France, more protests against pension reforms. Weeks of unrest comes after the country's President Emmanuel Macron said he plans to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. Paris sanitation workers are still on strike, leaving uncollected garbage all across the capital city. Macron ordered their prime minister to invoke a special constitutional power to raise the age, trying to avoid a vote in the lower chamber of parliament. French lawmakers on both sides voted no confidence against the prime minister and her cabinet last Friday. And in Switzerland, banking giant UBS has agreed to purchase Credit Suisse, a smaller rival bank. The $3.2 billion purchase comes after the global fallout of the Silicon Valley bank collapse. UBS will take over the struggling bank and its operations with the hope of avoiding a broader crisis. Dozens of banks across the U.S. and Europe pledged nearly $100 billion to save other struggling banks. Meanwhile, as the U.S. still tries to find the best way to move forward after that pair of banks collapsed, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren says Congress should consider lifting the current $250,000 insurance cap for banks. But deciding how high to raise that limit and trusting the banks is the key.
I think that lifting the FDIC insurance cap is a good move. Now, the question is, where's the right number on lifting it? But recognize that we have to do this because these banks are underregulated. And if we lift the cap, we are requiring or relying even more heavily on the regulators to do their jobs.
Warren didn't say whether she had spoken to lawmakers about a plan to change the insurance limit, but did say it's one of the options that's got to be on the table right now. Recent advertisements claim the Biden administration is proposing massive cuts to Medicare that could reduce benefits by hundreds of dollars per retiree. Verify's Ariane Detil looks into those claims.
Ads like this one are being shared online. They claim that the Biden administration is proposing massive cuts to Medicare Advantage, but the claim isn't true. Using these sources, I'll explain why two recent announcements from the Biden administration are likely behind the claims. Medicare is federal health insurance for anyone age 65 and older, and some people under 65 with certain disabilities or conditions. It's made up of 4 parts: A, B, C, and D. People have the option to get their coverage on the private market, which is called Medicare Advantage, or Part C. But Medicare experts say private insurance companies are being overpaid for the plan. The Biden administration announced 2 recent proposals that would change that. One is a rule change that would allow the federal government to recover past overpayments to Medicare Advantage insurers. It's set to take effect in April 2023. The second would update how Medicare Advantage insurers will be paid starting in 2024. But according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Medicare experts, the Biden administration isn't proposing cuts to Medicare Advantage benefits for seniors. Some of the changes in the proposal will reduce payments to Medicare Advantage insurers, but the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services estimate the proposal will actually result in a 1% increase in payments to insurers per enrollee in 2024. Jeannie Fugelston-Bennick, Associate Director of the Program on Medicare Policy at the Kaiser Family Foundation, says,
So I think the better way to think about it is that these are improving the accuracy of the payments to Medicare Advantage plans.
So no, the Biden administration is not proposing cuts to Medicare Advantage plan benefits. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Detil.
The city of Jacksonville filed a big community need with the opening of Unity Health Jacksonville last week. This gives neighbors more options for health care in an area that's been without a hospital for 4 years. The new Unity Health Jacksonville building used to house North Metro Medical Center, which closed its doors suddenly back in 2019. Having the emergency room closer could potentially save lives.
There's fantastic care available in Sherwood and North Little Rock. Those are great facilities. But if you live in Jacksonville and you're in a true emergency, those 10 minutes can make all the difference in a positive and less than positive outcome.
Jacksonville Mayor Jeff Elmore expects people from outside the city to use the hospital too, especially because of the mental health services it offers. Unity Health Jacksonville is currently working to hire nurses, laboratory technicians, and other positions. Elections are top of mind for many lawmakers this session. Several bills related to elections are quickly moving towards becoming law. One of the biggest would change when special elections are held. Another would get rid of the ability to write in a person for office if you don't want to vote for any of the candidates listed. There's also a bill that would require paper ballots to be compatible with the electronic machines. So a county that chooses to use paper ballots would just be responsible for the printing and counting. You can learn more about those bills and other pieces of legislation being discussed at the Capitol right now on THV11.com. Now, earlier this week, there were developments from the deadly plane crash in Little Rock last month. The NTSB has released the preliminary report of what led up to the crash that killed 5 people. THV11's Ashley Godwin joins us now with what the report says.
This is a picture of the radar at the time of the crash. The NTSB report shows us a storm front was headed right for the airport at time of takeoff. The report also lays out the timeline of communication between the pilot and air traffic control.
It crashed and had a giant fireball. I saw the ball of fire, yes ma'am. I could still see the smoke.
This 911 caller saw the moments just after the deadly crash last month. Now, NTSB is releasing their initial findings of what happened that day. At 11:51, the pilot requested clearance for takeoff. At the time, there was a low-level wind shear advisory alert. Around 11:53, traffic control gives them clearance, but not before there were 2 more weather advisory alerts issued to the pilot. At 11:55, the plane takes off, and a minute later, the plane crashes. Last month, following the crash, we spoke to an aviation expert on who ultimately decides when takeoff is okay.
Ultimately, it's the pilot's decision. You know, the air traffic controller can, suggest, they can look at their radar and everything and say, I see it doesn't look good or whatever. And they can make recommendations, but in the end, it's the pilot.
The NTSB report says a camera showed the takeoff appeared normal, but just as the plane went out of view, a plume of smoke started to rise about a mile away. Then, the camera appeared to shake from wind and recorded blowing debris and heavy rain. The report also found no abnormalities with the plane or mechanics after investigating the wreckage. The plane was carrying 5 people when it crashed. The group was headed to Ohio to help in response to a metal factory explosion. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Ashley. We have reached out to the FAA, who's in charge of the control tower, but they have not yet responded. Still ahead tonight, a Razorback win means a win for business here in Arkansas. After the break, we'll take a look at the crowds filing into local bars and restaurants, all to call those hogs. Corrales, what kind of weather are we expecting this week?
Well, it's the final night of the winter season, and it will definitely feel like it. We are still expecting a freeze warning. Many areas expecting below freezing temperatures tonight. But we do have some warmer days in store as we head officially into the spring season. I'll let you know what we can expect for your week ahead coming up in minutes.